Okay, I'm Courtney, and I'm going to be talking about whether sex can be addictive or not. I chose this topic because I come from a small conservative town, so I'm not used to hearing about this kind of stuff, so I wanted to look at something that wasn't as familiar with. So this is important for psychologists to study, because if they find that this is a legitimate disease, then the proper therapy can be provided for sex addicts, and if it's not real, then we can stop worrying about it, basically. And then I believe that sex can be addictive because of all of the sex addiction stories in the media, such as Tiger Woods, who went into sex addiction treatment in 2010 after cheating on his wife and having other affairs. And then there are other people in the media that have been linked with it, such as JFK, Charlie Sheen, and they're all, coincidentally or not, linked with infidelity. So my evidence supporting, Hall states that he looks at it from a psychological standpoint, a biological standpoint, and a social standpoint. He starts with sex is a dopamine stimulant, and it does the same thing that drugs do. And early porn exposure for a child has the same effect as drug abuse on dopamine control in the long term. And then it's also used as a coping strategy, just as drugs or alcohol would be with issues of neglect, attachment issues, or traumatic episodes in the past. And then in society today, it's viewed more openly, and very openly in the media, and we have much more exposure to it today than we have. So in conclusion, Hall said that it mirrors drug addiction in all three of the ways. And then on my other side of the supporting evidence, Carnes identified that the same treatments are used in sex addiction as for drug addiction or drugs and alcohol. He said that they use spiritual guidance, which is seeking out like a church or a pastor, and then or having some religious experience that relieves them from their addiction. And then the 12-step program is also used. And the 12-step program starts with admittance, and then it usually turns to spiritual guidance. And then it ends with helping others who are also suffering from an addiction. And then Carnes also compares this to an eating disorder, because sex and food are both essential to life. So it's hard to get off of these things because we need them for living. For my refuting evidence, Moser, he criticizes Martin Kafka's symptoms of hypersexual disorder as being too vague and not researched thoroughly. This was reviewed to be entered into the DSM, but was denied in 2012. Moser thinks that it should have been listed as a behavioral disorder, because this is often a symptom of another behavioral disorder, compulsive sexes. And he also stated that Kafka never describes what normal sex behavior is. He doesn't acknowledge that everyone has a different idea of what normalcy is, so it's too vague of a topic to spot on what normalcy is. And then Siegel and Siegel, they agree and further elaborate on what Moser says about it being a behavioral disorder. They say that compulsive sex is often what sex addicts often have another behavioral disorder along with this hypersexual disorder, so it lines up too often for it not to be correlated. And then he further elaborates on the two types of compulsive sex, which is paraphilic, which is sex with children or animals or some inappropriate behavior, and then non-paraphilic, which inflicts on everyday life. And most of the sex addicts never actually fall into either of this disorder. And so I concluded that sex is similar to drugs in the way that it influences humans in their behavior, with the dopamine stimulant or the coping strategy. But on the other hand, compulsive sex often is a symptom of another disorder, and not enough research exists to categorize it as a disorder. Kafka, both of the refuting authors concluded that Kafka uses his own beliefs to describe the disorder, and he didn't take into account what other people would think. And then, so after researching it, I believe that compulsive sex is paired with another disorder but cannot stand alone as its own disorder. And there are my references. Thank you.